Secondborn, the one built to catch up. Younger brothers steal bases 10 times more often than their older brothers. Same genes, same household, completely different player on the field. There was already someone faster than you. Before you could even walk well, there was a target. A meta-analysis of 24 studies looked at birth order and dangerous sports. Laterborns were 1.48 times more likely than firstborns to take up high-risk activities, not slightly more, nearly half again as likely. Researchers also studied 700 brothers who played Major League Baseball. Younger brothers attempted the high-risk play of base stealing 10.6 times more often. They succeeded 3.2 times more often. That is not a personality quirk. That is years of chasing someone who started the race first. Think about what that actually means on the field. A firstborn waits for the safe opening before committing. You commit, then figure out the landing on the way down. Coaches call it instinct. It comes from a childhood spent always slightly behind. But the gap does not close just because you grow up. You can be 30 years old, winning something real, and still feel like you are chasing someone who stopped racing you years ago. The finish line moved. Some part of you never got the memo. Not every rival starts out ahead of you, though. Twin, the one whose rival was always exactly your level. What happens when your sparring partner is born on the same day you were? No older sibling to chase, no younger one trying to catch up, just someone matching you stride for stride from the very first lap. A secondborn spends years closing a gap. You never had a gap, you had a mirror. A 2015 study tracked 229 athletes across Australia and Canada, led by sports scientist Melissa Hopwood. It found something specific about elite competitors. They were significantly more likely to have a sibling who competed in the same sport, often at the same level. Twin pairs take that further, training side by side, same schedule, same benchmarks, every single day. You cannot blame a loss on age, size, or experience. The only variable left is effort, and effort is hard to hide from someone who has watched you up close your whole life. That kind of pressure creates a strange combination. You push harder than almost anyone, because excuses do not survive in your house. At the same time, you never get the relief of an opponent you can write off, not as simply better or simply lucky. Every result is just you, measured against the only person who started exactly where you started. Nobody warns you about the part that comes next. Winning can feel like outdoing the one person who was supposed to be on your side. Losing can feel like losing to yourself. Figuring out where you end and your twin begins takes years. Some twins never fully finish that work. Look at Bob and Mike Bryan, identical twins. They became the winningest doubles team in tennis history in a sport that rewards exactly what twins build first, reading a partner's next move before they make it. Plenty of you never had a rival at all. Some grew up as the one everyone else measured against. Firstborn, the one who led before they played. You have never once looked up at an older sibling's scoreboard. That single fact changed how you compete for the rest of your life. Watching younger siblings, setting the example, being first before you had any say in it. That role does not disappear on a field. It shows up as structure. You gravitate towards sports with clear rules and clear hierarchy. Team captain, point guard, the one calling plays before anyone tells you to. That same 24-study meta-analysis on birth order and risk found firstborns consistently land in the lower risk category. Steady, calculated, not reckless. That shows up in the small moments coaches remember. The play called with 2 seconds left, run exactly as drawn up. The teammate who stays composed when everyone else is panicking. None of that looks dramatic on a highlight reel, but every team needs that kind of player on the roster. More often than not, that player grew up as the oldest in the house. That made you reliable. It also taught you early that mistakes are not just yours. When you mess up, it does not feel like one bad play. It feels like the whole structure cracking, because you were the one holding it up. That feeling does not stay on the field either. Asking a teammate to cover for you still does not come naturally. Neither does asking anyone else for help in any part of your life. You learned to carry weight before you learned you were allowed to put it down. In other families, that weight gets split 2 or 3 ways instead of landing on one kid. Middle child, the one who learned to read the room. Picture the team photo. Front row, dead center. Not the captain, not the mascot, just there. That is roughly where you have stood your whole life. So you negotiated for what was left. That constant back and forth created something specific. the ability to read two completely different people and adjust to both. On a team, you sense tension before it explodes. You know which teammate needs pressure and which one needs space. Coaches notice this without naming it. Middle children show up disproportionately in team sports that depend on chemistry, not just individual stats. You adapt fast because you had to. Plans changed constantly at home. You stopped expecting anything to stay the same. That same skill makes you the player who adjusts mid-game without being told. A new defense, a different lineup, a teammate having an off day. You read it and shift before the huddle even forms. What it costs you is recognition. Box scores remember the player who scored. They do not remember the one who kept the team from falling apart in the third quarter. You have spent your whole life being essential and invisible at the same time. There are days you still wonder if anyone notices the difference you actually make. The next kid in line got something none of you had. A family that had already stopped worrying. Youngest, the one nobody was watching closely. By the time you arrived, the rules had already loosened. Your parents stopped panicking over every fall. Your older siblings already tested the boundaries you would later cross without a second thought. A 2022 study of UK athletes found a clear statistical link between birth order and skill level. Elite athletes were significantly more likely to be later born. Athletes who never made it past the lower tiers were more likely to be firstborn. Serena Williams, youngest of 5 sisters. Venus reached the top of tennis first. Serena grew up training inside a household that had already mapped out what elite training takes. She went on to win more Grand Slam titles than any of them. Jakob Ingebrigtsen, youngest of 3 Norwegian runners. His older brother spent years building a training program through trial and error. Jakob inherited a near-finished version of it. He became the only one of the 3 to win European gold in both the 1,500 and 5,000 meters. You were not coached into caution. You were free to experiment because nobody was bracing for your first move. That freedom shows up as creativity, unexpected footwork, a play style nobody taught you. You put it together yourself, testing moves your older siblings never had room to try. The same instinct that gets you benched for going off script sometimes wins the game outright. A play nobody on either side saw coming. Here is the part that does not show up until you are an adult. People assume you had it easy. They see the freedom. They miss everything you had to invent on your own, without anyone watching closely enough to help. You can spend years proving you are more than the kid who got away with things. One group on this list never had any of that sibling noise to react to at all. Only child, the one with nobody to share the attention. Every repetition, every correction, every hour of coaching pointed at exactly one kid, you. Nobody older pulling rank, nobody younger stealing the spotlight. That kind of one-on-one attention builds precision. Only children consistently show stronger results in individual sports. Tennis, swimming, gymnastics. Sports where technique gets refined alone, not against a rival sibling. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar grew up an only child. He went on to win 6 NBA championships and score more career points than almost anyone who ever played. The result of relentless, self-directed repetition with no sibling rival in the house to share the workload. You never had a built-in training partner pushing you through sibling rivalry, so you found internal motivation instead, with no one in the next lane to share the credit or the blame. That motivation does not need an audience or a rival nearby. It runs whether anyone is watching, the same engine in an empty gym as in a packed one. There's a flip side to never sharing the spotlight. When you lose, there is no sibling to point to, no one else who shares the outcome. It is just you, alone with the result. The same way you were alone with every hour of practice that led to it. Learning to let someone else carry part of that weight takes years. Most only children never expected to need. Line every one of these positions up next to each other, and one pattern keeps surfacing. The pattern nobody talks about. Look across elite sport, and the trend repeats. The same UK study found later-born competitors outnumbering firstborns at the top level, not just in one sport, but across the board. An investigation of Sweden's national ski team found 94% of athletes had at least one sibling. Birth order barely mattered there. Having a sibling in the house did. A 2014 study of the U.S. women's national soccer team found 3 out of 4 players had an older sibling. Megan Rapinoe, Mia Hamm, and Alex Morgan were among them. For most of human history, sibling competition worked like training. Constant, low-stakes conflict. It forced every child to test their limits daily against someone who already knew exactly where those limits were. Evolutionary psychologists call this a built-in sparring partner, a rival close enough to push you, safe enough to fail in front of. Firstborns had a clean run with no competition until one arrived. Every sibling after that grew up sparring from day one. That daily friction did more than produce athletes. It created risk tolerance, social awareness, and resilience in different shapes, depending entirely on where you stood in line. None of it showed up on a stat sheet at age 8. All of it shows up now, every time you compete. Your birth order shaped you. It does not own you. It does not own you.